Ducks, I would take the entirety of the 7 days that is allotted to me just to kind of go through all the different things that you're going to have to kind of look at moving forward. Cleaning up your salary cap in other areas. You already did the deal with Minchikov. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe get into Cutter Gautier's agent and find out like what their thinking is down the road. But take the entirety of the 7 days. Maybe you don't even talk to anybody else, really, because anybody you talk to could go back and tell somebody else what it is. So at the end of the day, I think that they do have to match just because he is such an important piece of their team moving forward. And if they do match, they cannot trade him to anybody for a full year. So that means they have to eat the nearly $40 million in signing bonus money. The front part of it, which I believe is $19.5, and then the back part, which I think is $18.5, and then there's salary in there. So it's nearly $40 million for one season before you have complete control again. And then if you wanted to entertain a move, you can do that. But I think as a franchise, you have to maintain control of your players, particularly key players. There are so few number one centers in the National Hockey League. So for me, if I'm the Anaheim Ducks, you have to swallow hard and match it.
TJ touched on the structuring of the contract. How about what this means for the salary implications of all RFAs? We know it's a copycat league. We know every one of the 32 teams is watching this, and certain names come to mind right away. Our producer Tron's ahead of us. Yes, Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli. What about them and what this means for them?
Well, I think it's certainly maybe a little bit more likely that teams would try to present them and their representatives with offer sheets. Remember, the player has to sign that offer sheet. He has to want to go to that particular place. In this case, for me, Carlson is such a unique player. He's big, strong. He is the kind of guy. It's like a little like Barkov, let's just say, in Anaheim. And we know what he has done for the for the Florida Panthers during his time. So, for me, I think this is the kind of guy you really target. You throw all the money in there. Philadelphia was very, very calculated in the way they've done this and make it as hard as possible on the Anaheim Ducks. I don't know if you play the same game to get Bedard or Fantilli. It's not that I don't think they're terrific players. I just don't know if they have the impact on winning that Carlson could have for your franchise.
How about the fact that offer sheets have become more regular? There was a stretch where we didn't have them, and that was a discussion. Now, and here you go, taking a look at just the last 7 years. From Aho forward, you see some match, some were successful. TBD on Carlson and Barrett Hayton. We're around these hockey people, and I say this with ultimate admiration. The most competitive humans I've ever met are hockey people. Off the ice, on the ice, they're the most pleasant also. But when it comes down to competing, whether it's the front office, the decision makers, we're seeing that competitive fire spill over into these offer sheets, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, well, there's no question in this case that Keith Jones and Danny Briere, they want to win. They want to move forward. And as I mentioned, it is hard to get these type of players. There's just not that many around. You have to have, I guess, the good fortune in your rebuilding to have a high pick to get one and then hope that they meet those expectations. Just very difficult to do. So they see a team that's on the move. They've put a lot of pieces on the outside of their team, but what are they missing? They're missing a really legit number one center. So they see Anaheim as a team that they could potentially have some cap issues if the Philadelphia Flyers make a push that's hard enough. They have certainly made a push that's hard enough here. The question is, well, can Anaheim swallow it? Because they were expecting the possibility of something like this, but they were thinking that number probably could be at 14 or 15. Pat Verbeek said, doesn't matter. We're going to match no matter what it is. I don't think that they envisioned this contract for $18 million against the cap and $40 million in bonus payments that basically have to get paid out in the first calendar year. So, sometimes you don't see something coming, and now you just have to react to it. That's all you can do.
It was a shot across the bow. The entire league. I think about Minchikov, and you mentioned this earlier. His deal, all that's gone on with the Ducks and what they've been dealing with, they got this done. Minty, A 5-year contract extension. Put that into context for us, what that means in the midst of all this other stuff.
Well, there was a lot of discussion that there was offer sheets that were being presented to Minchikov and his representatives. That was a really big rumor that was flying around throughout the weekend, and then eventually he decided he wants to stay in Anaheim, and Anaheim gets to the point where they can make a deal. And I think it's interesting to note, like across town there with the LA Kings, they signed Brant Clark before the draft for 5 times 7-4. That is kind of a template for the deal for Minchikov, and maybe for some other deals we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show that get signed for young defensemen. So you can see here on that list, they've made some moves. I mean, think about it. Anaheim moved McTavish out. They let all those right side defensemen go via free agency, Carlson, Trouba, and Gudas. So there was room, but now they're squeezed a little bit. So they may have to do even a little bit more down the road. Remember, you can go over the cap by 10% in the off season. They might have to do a little bit more to make it all work, because they've got to figure out, we got to keep Gauthier, who doesn't have a contract right now. He is not eligible for an offer sheet because of his games played right now in the National Hockey League. And then you have to worry about Beckett Seneke down the road. He's only played 1 year. Next July 1st, he is eligible for a contract extension at that point. I would suggest that Pat Verbeek and company will learn their lessons from this and get ahead of that with Beckett Seneke.
How about the Ducks cap situation? You mentioned Cutter Gauthier. We marveled at his season. The notable RFA on the screen, their projected cap space. That would include the offer sheet. You can see the
that's if they match.
Yep. Right. Gauthier deserves a solid contract and has earned it. What do you think happens there?
Well, again, this is always about getting ahead of things. Like the Montreal Canadiens got ahead of things with, their winger Demidov, right? And so he signed a contract about $9.15 million over 8 years. So great contract for the Montreal Canadiens and a good contract for the player. Well, things have unfolded in those couple days since
yes,
then,
they
right?
have.
And now Cutter Gauthier might be looking at, let's face it, he scored 41 goals this year. He might be looking at a contract, he might be thinking about $15, $16 million a year. So I think for Pat Verbeek and company, they're likely going to, I would think they're going to have to move another piece or two out. Now they have Kreider at about $6 million. They have Killorn. You can see the numbers right there. They both have 1 year left, Kreider and Killorn. They have limited no-trade protection, so there's some teams they can be moved to. I think it's a 15-team trade list that each of them have. And then Vetrano, who has a second year left on that contract. Any of those guys, one or more of those guys, perhaps Anaheim has to move out. Now, if they want to move them, a team might say, listen, we'll take that player, but we'll also take a first-round pick. We'll also take a second-round pick, So that might be something now that Anaheim has to investigate, because I would think that they would have to move at least one of those guys out to create the room necessary to do a longer-term deal with Gauthier. Remember, right now he does not have the ability to accept an offer sheet. He doesn't have arbitration. So that's one of those deals that I'm sure Pat Verbeek would like to figure out a way to get it done sooner than later. But it could end up one of those deals that goes into the preseason and maybe beyond.
This is such big news that, oh, by the way, the greatest goal scorer who ever lived is coming back to play for the Caps again. That's kind of big news. Huge for the Caps. It's not so over, babes. Washington Capitals re-signing their captain, Alex Ovechkin, to a 1 year contract extension. Carries an AAV of $4.25 million.